Former Nirvana bassist Krist Novoselic is one of rock's most politically minded musicians. Born Krist Anthony Novoselic on May 16, 1965 in Los Angeles to Croatian immigrants, Novoselic and his family remained in California until 1979, when they moved to the tiny logging town of Aberdeen, Washington. Novoselic had changed the spelling of his first name to Chris, although he would go back and forth between the spellings throughout the years. Feeling self-conscious and like an outsider among his new schoolmates, Novoselic discovered such classic rockers as Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and Black Sabbath, as well as such new wave bands as Devo. But it wasn't until a year-long trip to his parents' native country of Croatia in 1980 that he discovered punk rock. When he reluctantly returned to the US a year later, Novoselic saved up enough money to buy a guitar, and learned by playing along to blues records. Novoselic's younger brother Robert brought home a new friend one day, Kurt Cobain, who was impressed with the fact that Novoselic was a punk fan. The two had several mutual friends, including the members of a burgeoning local band named the Melvins, and began hanging out shortly thereafter. During his senior year of high school, Novoselic had surgery done on his jaw, fixing his underbite. Cobain tried convincing Novoselic to form a band with him, and after turning down the invitation numerous times, he finally agreed. The duo went through a series of names until settling on Nirvana. The new group specialized in stripped-down punk rock, and was a complete reaction against all the horrible glam metal that had been glutting the charts and the airwaves for years, taking a pro-feminist stance amidst the overabundance of testosterone-heavy macho rock. Their debut release for Sub Pop in 1989's Bleach established an underground following with the college rock crowd, and shortly after the release of 1991's Nevermind, the trio's popularity exploded as they spearheaded the whole Seattle movement. But after only 2 more releases, Nirvana would abruptly come to an end with Cobain's tragic suicide in April of 1994. While with Nirvana, Novoselic helped arrange a 1993 benefit show at the Cow Palace in San Francisco that benefited Bosnian rape victims. After Nirvana, Novoselic organized Joint Artists and Music Promotion's Political Actions Committee, which fought against Washington state bills that threatened to limit the distribution and sale of music that certain government groups deemed obscene. Novoselic also teamed up with ex-Dead Kennedys frontman Jello Biafra and ex-Soundgarden guitarist Kim Thayil for a 1999 protest show in Seattle against the World Trade Organization. In addition, Novoselic was a member of the duo Sweet 75, releasing a lone self-titled album in 1997 before breaking up, and by the dawn of the 21st century, was focusing on compiling rare Nirvana tracks for a proposed box set. However, behind all that, here are the facts about Krist Novoselic. He really hurt himself on stage. MTV likes to market its annual Video Music Awards as one of the most unpredictable and dangerous nights of the year, an event where the music industry's current best and brightest come out to perform, receive trophies, and act up for the live television cameras. Nirvana happily obliged that vibe at the 1992 Video Music Awards, bringing a tough, gritty and frenetic punk-inspired style to the proceedings. Toward the end of Nirvana's rendition of their hit Lithium, bassist Krist Novoselic tossed his instrument high into the air, a bit that was a common if hazardous element of his usual stage antics, according to drummer Dave Grohl on Dennis Miller Live. Usually, he caught it, but not that night. In front of a packed theater and on live TV, Novoselic bobbled the catch, and the bass came down on his face. The blow knocked him to the ground and left him dazed and hobbling around the stage. Grohl was too busy playing the drums to know what was going on, but when he got backstage, there was a fervor over Novoselic's condition, hearing a rumor that he'd knocked himself out. Novoselic could have been a Foo Fighters. After the death of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain, Nirvana immediately broke up. Surviving members, drummer Dave Grohl and bassist Krist Novoselic laid low for a while, focusing on their personal lives instead of trying to figure out their next musical moves. Krist and I kept in touch, and we would get together and talk, make sure we were each doing okay, Grohl told Rolling Stone. About a year after the dissolution of Nirvana, Grohl launched his follow-up band Foo Fighters, and in assembling the group, he reached out to occasional Nirvana second guitarist Pat Smear to participate. Grohl also gave serious consideration to adding Novoselic to the first Foo Fighters lineup. We talked about it, and then it just didn't happen. Grohl said of creating a new band that would consist almost entirely of former Nirvana members. "For Krist and I, it would have felt really natural and really great, but for everyone else, it would have been weird." Grohl said, "I really would have been under the microscope." He's an active indie rocker. As far as former members of Nirvana making music goes, Dave Grohl has been the most prominent, fronting Foo Fighters through a dozen albums. Nirvana bassist Krist Novoselic has also released a slew of music over the decades, almost all of it with low-key bands and indie rock collectives. Novoselic has been a member of 5 bands post-Nirvana, firstly Sweet 75. The project formed out of a collaboration between street singer Eva Las Vegas and Novoselic. A plan for the latter to produce an album for the former turned into a group, with Las Vegas singing and playing bass and Novoselic playing 12-string guitar. Sweet 75 released a soul album in 1997. By 2001 Novoselic had moved on to Eyes Adrift, a super trio that also included Kurt Kirkwood of the Meat Puppets and former Sublime drummer Bug Go. According to LA Weekly, Novoselic spent part of the mid-2000s as a replacement member in Flipper, an experimental and influential San Francisco punk band that he'd loved as a teenager. His next project was another supergroup Filthy Friends, which included members of the Fastbacks, Sleater-Kinney, and Ram. Most recently, Novoselic devotes his energies to Giants in the Trees, a band he formed near his home in rural Washington state which plays forest grunge. Novoselic is a man of many love and a love of the land. At his core, it would seem that Krist Novoselic is as much of a family man who loves to work at his home, on his home, as much as he is a musician and political scientist. In the early days of Nirvana, according to The Olympian, Novoselic married rock photographer Shelley Dilley, who he'd been dating since high school. The couple divorced in 1999, and a few years later, Novoselic married artist Darbury Ein Stenderju, with whom he's had a couple of children. According to the Seattle Times, he and Stenderju settled into a compound in Deep River, in rural, sparsely populated Waukegan County in southwest Washington state. The location allows the musician to pursue one of his major interests, flying a small airplane. He converted an abandoned creamery near his working farm into a recording studio, not far from his stable of animals, which includes a horse, an alpaca, and a goat. Novoselic is a leader in the local farm-based economy and community, a member of the Grays River Grange Fraternal Organization and later its elected master, leading meetings and organizing service projects.